Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by Shotgun Spratling and Ryan Abraham. We have a good show in for you tonight. We're going to talk about Kliff Kingsbury. It's official. USC announced on Tuesday that Kliff will become the head or the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Little slip there.
And then we'll also talk about the 2019 schedule that was released, so we'll get a look at what USC will face next season. We'll also talk about the all-conference Pac-12 team. Did USC make the first team at all? We'll see. And then, of course, we'll be taking your questions. We are live on all three.
1, 2, 3.
Woo!
Tribal
YouTube,
cast.
Periscope, and Facebook Live. So make sure you get your questions and we will answer those. Guys, how you doing?
Doing all right. It's a little chilly here. Rainy day in Southern California. I'm
is.
still a little under the weather.
Oh, no.
I was doing some Christmas cookies on my way over here. So it's just, I don't know. We're trying to get in the festive spirit. And USC fans their spirits are up a little bit with the official hiring of Kliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Official.
Get excited.
Super official.
5 days later,
I mean, USCFootball.com did report it a week earlier, but it's official. So how do you guys feel? I know we had talked about it, but now that it's official, I think we can talk in a little bit more authority. What does this mean for USC now that he's the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I think this program needed a jolt in the arm. I mean, you've been on the message boards. If you're on wherever you're watching, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, if you see us on wherever we are on YouTube, on our message boards on USCFootball.com, which you should make sure you get over there because a lot of USC fans talking. If you like tweeting and all that kind of stuff, get on USCFootball.com on the message boards. But it was pretty much negative. Like there was not a lot of positivity going on with USC. So knowing that the 5-7 season was happening, knowing that what the fans wanted in Clay Helton to not be coming back wasn't happening, there wasn't a lot of hope. You need hope sometimes. You need something to hold on to. There really wasn't anything. All you hear about people is they're canceling their season tickets and donors aren't giving money and all that kind of stuff. So it was just like going down, down, down. But this is a swing for the fences. This is something that we haven't seen USC do before. They've mostly made familiar hires. They haven't gone after people that other schools would want. Now, this is not just other schools would love Kliff Kingsbury. There's NFL teams that would have loved Kliff Kingsbury. So for USC to swing for the fences, connect, get that guy you wanted, I think it's something positive. And this program just needed, Lynn Swann for sure, needed something positive to happen. And this was it.
Yeah, I think that you got someone who was coveted.
Yes.
I think that is a huge thing for this program because the guys they've gotten before is like, wait, he's coming from where?
Right.
Like you're pulling it, like, is that guy even coaching anymore? Like, I completely forgot about it. And like, you kind of want, like, even when Clancy Pendergast was brought back, and like a lot of people were excited about the hire of Clancy Pendergast, it's like, wait, where has he been the last year? Oh, he's a linebackers coach somewhere?
Yeah.
Like, is that what's going on? Like, he's not a defense coordinator somewhere else. You're not pulling him away from an SEC school or something like that. No, you were losing your guys. Like, Peter Sirmon left Clay Helton off of Clay Helton's staff after he had already fired, Justin Wilcox and, that group. Peter Sirmon stayed and coached the bowl game, and then he left to go to Mississippi State to get a coordinator position. Whereas, now you're going out and getting someone that other people wanted, something that was coveted, and USC was kind of able to win that sweepstakes, so to speak. And that, I mean, I think you look at the players' reaction from what little bit we've seen on social media and what we've heard from them and stuff, offline, is that they're all excited about it. And everyone around seems to be excited about the potential of this offense now. And I think that the way that Kliff Kingsbury's offenses have produced consistently over the last 10 years or so, you have to think, wow, now if you use USC's athletes with this could be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
And even if USC's still bad next year, at least it'll be an entertaining bad team.
True.
Like it might be 52-45 or something, but it's better than 17-3?
Right.
Stanford?
13.
15-14?
Yeah.
Keely will at least have the field level highlights. And she'll have more to put
Yeah,
up
I
there.
will actually have highlights to show.
That Stanford game, there probably wasn't a whole lot of highlights that you could put up there,
Yeah, it was pretty rough. Yeah. But the thing we said this in the Family Feud podcast. I felt like this season it was almost like USC's offensive players were playing in spite of their offensive scheme. Now it seems like they'll actually have something that will come alongside their talent and actually help them and improve and go alongside their strengths.
Yeah, and I think we've seen flashes of what a good offensive scheme with like the first half against Notre Dame. That looked like it was a well thought out plan. They JT Daniels was like 15 or 16 or whatever it was. You're like, oh, this is what happens when athletes have like, it's work like the scheme is working with them, and
with
like
them,
you're going to assume that that's going to happen most of the time, not a quarter here or a quarter there. This will be something like, oh, this is something that's going to be really positive for these athletes. I think they're going to be really excited. We still don't know all the other pieces that are going to fall into place, but you needed this big domino to fall. We still don't know when the press conference is going to be. We still haven't heard from Lynn Swann. So they're definitely circling the wagons around Heritage Hall and just kind of, putting out information as they feel it needs to happen. But it's not very, open right now as far as like media coming in and asking any sort of question. So since Notre Dame, we haven't got any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to last year after they lost the Cotton Bowl. Didn't really hear from Clay Helton until signing day. So that's kind of been their MO recently, is that there's going to be less and less media access, and they're not going to come out and be super forthcoming with information when they don't have to be.
Yeah. As far as coaching staff changes, do you think there's still open positions, so of course changes have to happen, but as far as coaches who are still there, do you think they're locked in, or is it still fluid?
I feel it's still fluid. So offensive coaches that are still there, you're talking about Keely Colbert, who was coaching tight ends. I don't think USC will have a tight ends coach anymore, so his position most likely is going to be eliminated. Now, he's a wide receiver.
He was coaching tight ends and inside receivers was his technical title. So
they call him the inside receiver guy? Okay, so he could essentially keep doing that.
They will have inside receivers in this offense.
Yeah, you're going to have two, usually for this kind of offense, you have two receivers coaches, an inside guy, that's like more the H-back people, and then the outside receiver. So he could stay there and do that. But he hasn't done it in an air raid type of system. So it'll depend if Kliff Kingsbury wants someone who's not, has 1 year of experience. Like that's basically what Keely Colbert has.
I don't think it's that big of a difference. If you're looking at receivers, if you played inside receiver, which Keely Colbert did in the league and stuff, and how to coach up, how to run routes. I don't think a receiver's routes change dramatically. Like how you're teaching routes and stuff, I don't think it's changed dramatically by system. It's just what routes you're running and what combinations of routes is more of the big thing with the spread versus the air raid versus a pro set, is what types of routes you're running and what kind of formations and stuff you're running it out of, which is if you're still a slot receiver, you're still a slot receiver.
Yeah. Well, so it's going to be up to, how much power does Kliff Kingsbury have? Do I want a guy that has 1 year coaching experience, or do I want someone that has 10 years coaching experience of inside receivers? I would assume, we'll see what happens there. The other aspect is Tim Drevno, who was coaching running backs, then expanded to offensive line. He could obviously stay on as the offensive line coach, you would assume, and they would get someone else to coach running backs because that's not really been his forte. But he also hasn't done, the blocking schemes for an air raid offense too. So it's pretty different. I think you're talking about, coaching receivers and routes. You're talking about blocking and air raid. I think the spreads are going to, the splits are going to be a lot different. I think there's different techniques that you want to use. Yeah. So Kliff Kingsbury might want to make a change there too. So we'll see. We don't know. I think that's it for the offensive. Who's the other offensive coach? Yeah, with
Callaway's gone.
Yeah, Callaway's gone.
And T. Martin's gone.
T. Martin's gone, and the quarterback coach Brian Ellis is gone. So it's pretty much, we'll see. Does he keep those two guys on, or does he replace the entire offensive staff?
I just think there's a big difference. Like offensive line, I think the play is much different than inside receivers, at least.
Sure.
I think you're still running the same routes as a receiver versus offensive line. You might have, like you said, the splits will be different. How you're blocking certain things will be different. But I think the fact that USC ran a lot of those zone read concepts where they're trying to get outside and do different things like that, I think that plays into the type of the air raid. So I don't know that you have to make a move there. And I think it comes down to, what I was telling Keely earlier is, Kliff Kingsbury maybe came on campus for an interview with Helton or Swann. He was on campus probably one time. He didn't have time to sit down and be like, all right, well, now while I'm on this campus for an interview, I'm going to interview these other guys that would be underneath me. You don't do that. So now he's got to get to know those guys, and maybe he puts them on the board and says, hey, what do you like to run? How do you draw up this? See what they do and talk to the players. What do you like about this coach? And then you make the decision on do I really like this guy? Do I want to keep him around? Or should I look for someone that I'm more comfortable with, that I've coached with before, or go out and find someone new?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Actually talk to them and interview them.
An interview is important.
Yes, an interview like, oh, I liked him, Durham. No, I will keep him. Or, no, he's not what I want. I mean, but you talk to him and see, because he knows what he wants. And so I think he has the authority to go out and do that. So, we don't know any other moves yet, but this was obviously the big one. This one had to happen. Will there be other ones, other guys that are let go? There's 2 weeks basically left until the signing period starts. So December 19th. December 17th is the dead period, or whatever. Is it the dark period or the no contact period, whatever it is? And so people are recruiting now. You're seeing, if you're following Twitter and stuff, and you follow the stories that we're doing, you're seeing guys like Gavin Morris or Eric Ziskin or Michael Hutchings out on the road recruiting, because they're filling in for the full-time assistants that aren't there anymore. Now Kliff Kingsbury can do it. He has to pass some kind of test or something. He has to make something or whatever. He has to get cleared by compliance. There's some stuff that has to go on.
Probably take forever with USC's compliance.
Yeah, that might, whatever.
But you look at it, and if you're Clay Helton, you should be looking for your staff members, and it didn't matter about the fact that signing day is coming up. You should be out trying to improve your staff and work on that. Whereas the other coaches, the Michael Hutchings and stuff, if they hire a linebackers coach, then Michael Hutchings just gets knocked down a rung, back to where he was. So those guys are going about their business day to day. If you're Kerry Colbert, you go about your normal business and attack your everyday pattern as you would going into the signing period. But if you're Clay Helton, you go out and try to find somebody. Hey, if you hire a guy on the 15th, you could still sway a recruit or something. You're not going to hurt your chances. Now, if you fire someone and then replace them, then maybe that changes things. So I don't think you'll see necessarily any firings before that period, before that signing day. But I think those openings, those could be filled before then still.
Yeah, and I think the one thing to watch is this was obviously a big move, right? We talked about this was against the grain. This was not something that we've seen Clay Helton feel comfortable doing. The only time he kind of dipped his toe into that unfamiliar water was Dylan McCullough. Yep. That lasted a year, and it's like you're right back out. Didn't go back into there. The rest of the hires, are they familiar hires? Are there names that you're familiar with? Are there, promotions of are they doing that, or are they still going to push the envelope more? They could get rid of more staff members and push the envelope. They could get a new strength. I mean, there's a lot of options that they could do. I think we've seen Clay Helton really be reluctant to do that. Like, keep it close. This is my family. Yeah. I want to keep this working. You finish 5-7. You kind of lose that privilege, right? So, is this Lynn Swan encouraging? Bringing in Kliff Kingsbury, but you do that, and it's like, okay, that's enough. Everything else is okay, or nope, that's still not enough. So, I'm curious to see the next steps. Is it familiar, or is it like, nope, keep pushing the envelope?
And if you're going to list all the things that's wrong with your team or your program, but only make a half-hearted effort of changing, obviously Kliff was a huge start. I think it should be the domino and not just the end-all, be-all.
Sure.
How much does the early signing period kind of tangle the web as far as what moves you can make and when you can make them?
It's definitely complicated things for coaches, because you could usually just wait. And we've seen coaches get fired in January and stuff. And it happened with Rich Rod, but that was at Arizona, but that was because of off the field things. Not now, if you're going to make a move, it's like you almost want to do what Colorado did and don't even wait till the end of the season. You got to get out ahead of this because of the early signing period. Now, USC, obviously, the head coach is still in place. Half the staff was gone. You could still go out and recruit. It's just a similar feel to before the Holiday Bowl. After Clay Helton was named the permanent head coach, got rid of the staff member. So I think that's all kind of factoring in. But yeah, it changes the game by doing that, and then it might impact recruiting if maybe you make a big move after the signing period, and then one of the coaches that you felt was going to be there for you isn't there after you sign. So that does complicate things more with recruiting too.
Yeah. And as far as Kliff goes in the recruiting sphere, as we've mentioned before, T. Martin was he was the recruiter. You take away that main recruiter and you put in Kliff. How much does Kliff help as far as generating buzz, but how much does that hurt you if you take away T. Martin right before the signing period?
I mean, it certainly hurts. I think you lose T. Martin, right? Kliff Kingsbury brings in buzz for sure. I think he's a good recruiter. But T was he was a grinder out there. And I don't know, you got like a Gavin Morris who's doing that, and he's actually now has more power because he's out on the road doing stuff. But this, I I think individual players, I think this can help, but you're going to need to. The other staff changes you make, you're going to need some more relentless recruiters because you didn't have that many and you got rid of a couple of them already.
But also, I think the biggest difference is relationships.
Yeah.
Kingsbury brings in the buzz, and people are excited about, oh, I could play on this offense. They're going to throw the ball a lot, especially for a receiver. If I'm a running back. And this is the question that's been asked by little fella the gamer. Will this hurt our running backs recruiting? I don't think so, because your running back, you think, wow, they're going to be spread out. I'm going to have big lanes to run through and stuff as well. And you're also seeing that because of the proliferation of this type of offense at the NFL level, it's not such a drawback anymore in recruiting. Because sometimes players wanted to come to USC. 10 years ago, people wanted to come to USC rather than go to a spread because, well, if I want to play at the next level, this is what they're doing. Well, hey, they're doing the same things now. So I think if you're running back, you can get used to this. You can earn your craft and stuff. You can work on your craft and stuff in this offense just as well as any other offense. They'll still find you for the NFL. I think the only big position of change is the tight end.
Right.
Because I looked through their Pro Football Focus stats, and their primary tight end, Dante Thompson, he played like 200 and something snaps this year, which is basically what Josh Follow played. And then last year he played basically what Eric Cromanhook played this year on offense. You guys remember Eric Cromanhook playing much on offense? No. That's how much he played last year. And he was their primary guy last year, too. He's played like 350 total snaps the last 2 years, whereas Tyler Petit played 500 and something this year.
Yeah.
So now when he comes in, how much does he cater his current roster to his offense, to his current roster? I don't think he'll go out and recruit a lot of tight ends in the future, but he might still use the guys that are on the roster and the guys that are coming in now. But I think that's the biggest difference for recruiting position-wise for Kingsbury. But with T. Martin, he had the relationships with all these players and all the coaches. So that's where you get hurt at. I think it's really big that Gavin Morris is still there.
Yeah.
Not Gavin is really big always with their recruiting, but I think it's really big when you lose T. Martin because those are the two guys that everyone would always talk about their relationships with. I talk to Gavin all the time, or I talk to T. So losing T. Martin, I think Gavin can help fill that void in a little bit. There's still that familiar face, that guy I've talked to a bunch, on the phone or whatever, as far as recruiting. Every time I come up to USC, Gavin's always there to say hi or whatever. I think that helps a lot, but that's where your drawback is. I don't think so much like position-wise, you're going to lose a bunch by having Kingsbury versus T. Martin as far as recruiting in this short period. But I think the relationships are really huge to these players, of course. And I think it also helps that Clay Helton has been such a recruiter himself.
Yeah.
He's been a guy that so many players have said, I talked to Clay Helton, he calls me. So
I think you look at the running back position. It depends on Kliff Kingsbury's adjusted his scheme and his system to the personnel. So he had a tight end that had over 100 catches before. I think it was 2015 or something. He had a running back over 1,400 yards. So it depends. He'll adjust to that. And he does have, there are at least some relationships. There's some crossover recruiting, like Bryce Young, the 2020 quarterback commit. His first offer came when he was in 8th grade from Kliff Kingsbury in Texas Tech. So there's some of that there, but he's got to, like Shotgun said, you got to build those relationships up. And he's coming in with a lot of buzz, but he hasn't talked to a lot of these players.
Going forward with recruiting, Ryan Rhino asked, will our recruiting improve because of Kliff Kingsbury? He seems like a very personable guy. So I think once he builds the relationships, if he's at USC for multiple years, once he builds those relationships with the high school coaches and stuff down here, I think then that'll be so. I think Bryce Young is a guy that was going to be a national recruit, so I think that's why he's a guy that would get an offer like that. As far as I can think of off the top of my head, I haven't seen a lot of offers from Texas Tech in Southern California.
No.
So I don't think he has a lot of connections, so he's going to have to work on that and build those. But then once he starts building those, and that's going to be there's going to be a gap there. The next recruiting class might be a little bit of a gap with, from what T. Martin the relationships he had already built. But after that, if he is still here, a couple years down the road, I think he is a personable guy, it seems like. So I think the recruiting would be fine in that regard with him.
We have a lot of Kliff questions, so we'll get to those once we get to questions.
Okay.
As far as the 2019 schedule, it was released this week. What stood out to you guys most about the schedule? It's not an easy first 6 games for USC.
No, it's brutal, the first 6 games. Although I said brutal, Dan Weber doesn't like that term because it's, but as far as looking at the teams you're playing, it's pretty tough. We did a Peristyle podcast, Tunnel Vision, on Tuesday, talking a little bit about it. But, playing a Fresno State who won the Mountain West, they beat Boise State on the blue turf in the snow, 11-2. You're talking about Jeff Tedford, who coached at Cal, took over a team that won one game and has won double digits the last 2 years. They still got a bowl game. They could be a 12-win team this year if they could beat Arizona State in the Vegas Bowl. So, I mean, that's not going to be easy. And you got Stanford, second game of the season, which they could have moved that around because this is a weird year that you get like 2 bye weeks. And they could have changed that, and they didn't, which I think was a failure on the Pac-12's part. But then going to BYU.
What? The Pac-12 fail?
Yeah. Going to BYU, the third game of the season. So you're playing 2 out-of-conference road games, which I don't think Alabama ever plays one, and USC's doing 2 in the same year. So there's some – that's not going to be easy. And then coming back on a Friday night, 2 Utah teams in a row. You're playing Utah, who won the Pac-12 South on a Friday night. And then you go on the road to play Washington, who won the Pac-12 North and the whole Pac-12 on the next Saturday. You get a bye week. And then you go play at Notre Dame, who is in the college football playoff right now. So that's a pretty tough stretch.
Yeah.
The biggest problem for me is having 2 Friday games. I think that's stupid. I think it's bad for the Pac-12 to do it. USC only has 6 home games this year, and they scheduled the BYU and Notre Dame on the same year of road games, so that's part of the problem. But they didn't need to put one of those 6 on a Friday night. This is the newly renovated Coliseum year. You want as many butts in those seats as you can. USC needed to push back. Well, the Pac-12 shouldn't have did it, and then USC should have pushed back and like, no, we're not doing this on a Friday night. Just like this year, we're not doing a Friday night Washington State game during construction. Like, that's just stupid. Like, so. To me, that Pac-12 did some dumb things, but USC needs to push back a little bit. And then the weird thing with only 1 bye, every team has 2. USC only has 1 because they get the bye week at the end of the season again, which you get a bye week if you make the Pac-12 championship game. But I don't know if you're expecting that for a team that goes 5-7.
Yeah.
I talked about this earlier on the Family Feud podcast. It's more in depth there there are a lot of inherent scheduling difficulties with the Pac-12 schedule. When you have a 9-game schedule, that makes it that much more difficult if you're the conference. But also because of the geographic regions and because there are certain times of day that you can play in certain venues, it makes it that much more difficult. And then you have to fit in your TV schedule as well. Like you can't play in Arizona during the day early in the season.
No.
You can't play in Washington State. You don't want to play up there at night late in the season. So the Pac-12 scheduling is difficult. Then Stanford and USC want to play Notre Dame every year. Well, the Pac-12 could be like, no, you're just not playing them. It doesn't work with the schedule. So instead they have to suffer because of them wanting to play that game. Hey, you're going to have to play early in the season because that's the only way we can make everything else work. So there are some things that I know the Pac-12 gets a very bad rep for the scheduling, and they probably deserve it. But it's a much tougher schedule to build out than an SEC where you only have 8 and everyone is much closer together geographically, because then you have the whole thing where you want the student athletes not to miss any time if possible. Well, don't have Thursday and Friday games, part of it. But, some schools, I think Keely was saying Arizona State has 3 Friday games.
Yeah, that's dumb.
And a Thursday game.
I think everybody has at least one except for 2 schools.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone's going to end up having one, basically, is the way you're looking at it. And then, hey, are you going to have one this year? If you don't, you have next year. I don't know. The scheduling is difficult in there. What stood out first to me is that USC plays at home their first 2 games, right?
Yeah.
They're not at home 2 weeks in a row the rest of the year. At all. I mean, even when they have their bye week, it's in between 2 road games. Now, if they get the second bye week, now their season can be over before they get the second bye.
Right, yeah.
If they have a bad season. Their regular season can be over, no bowl game, that type of thing, if they have a repeat year. And their season's over November 23rd. But that's the only way they're in LA 2 weeks in a row. That's if they play UCLA at home and then they have a bye week. Otherwise, they're on the road every other week. So that really stands out to me. I mean, we're going to know everything we need to know about this team after that Notre Dame game. The season
even before.
The season will be basically determined in those back-to-back games at Washington and at Notre Dame. Because, like I said before, I don't think you're going to get blown out in those games and do really well at everything else. No, you'll know by those 2 games, how those 2 games go, and how the season has played out at that point. You'll know how this team is doing.
Bill says, but Larry Scott is a media mogul. What are we supposed to know?
Very good. Yes. Very good, Bill.
Bill, nice.
I don't want to get into that.
There's a really good piece by John Wilner today in the San Jose Mercury News, if you want to check it out. Like, going into when the official scandal came out, like go read it. It's good. So he gets emails from the conference to like the athletic directors. Basically, when this scandal was going on, all they were worried about is what the perception was, and they talk about the media, how they're being hard on them and things. So it's a pretty good insight into how crazy this thing is run and how poorly it's run.
I mean, you guys just wouldn't understand because
Yeah.
we're running a media company here and a conference. So you guys, we're challenging to cover.
Yes. Ugh.
Get the hell out of here with that bull crap.
Guy makes almost $5 million a year, and he's the worst.
Oh my goodness.
Well, moving on to a different
I wish I
subject.
could be as bad at my job and make $4 million a year.
Well, it's debatable. Oh, but you're not making $4 million.
$4 million a year?
Just kidding.
Yeah.
As
You can
far
be snarky
as,
with that.
Yeah, I know. As far as conference honors, USC didn't have any first-team Pac-12 players. They did have 5 on the second team: Chuma Edoga, Porter Gustin, Iman Marshall, J2 Fele, and who am I missing?
Did you say Chuma Edoga?
I did. Porter Gustin, J2 Fele, Cameron Smith, and
Oh.
Iman Marshall. There we go.
Okay.
So second team, but I believe it's the 4th time in USC's history that they didn't have a first-team player, which tells you it's a losing season.
When was the last time?
2000, I think. The
Oh,
first
when they
was
went
there
5 and
record?
7.
Yeah.
But no one on the first, all Pac-12 team. Porter Gustin would have made it if he wasn't injured.
True.
But if you're 5 and 7, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt, obviously. And no one on the first or second team for the all-academic Pac-12 list either. So that's bad. Like, if you're going to stink on the field, at least have some smart guys in there getting on that. So.
But how much is that just grades versus grades and performance? Because your performance, if you're 5 and 7, your performance is still going to be bad. The guys that are on that team are still like Ben Burkervin. Like, he's legit performance on the field too, and he has a 3.63 or something. It's not like he has a 4.9 or something. I mean,
Right.
It's partly performance. That's why they didn't have anybody on that team, in my opinion.
But you got to have somebody on some of those teams.
Honorable mention, Wyatt Smith.
Yeah.
So you think about it. Marvell Tell last year, Marvell Tell this year. Is there a huge difference in the play? Did you guys see him really drop off this year? No, but he was first team last year.
Yeah.
Why? Because you won the Pac-12.
Yeah.
You win the Pac-12, guys get more recognition. Iman Marshall, his numbers stack up with the other guys that are on there.
UCLA had guys on there, though, right? I mean, they were terrible. They won 3 games or something. Right?
You can still have standout performances, but it's going to be that much. When there is a discussion and it becomes an argument about, okay, Byron Murphy, Paulson Adebo, or Jalen Johnson versus Iman Marshall, well, those teams are all good. Then they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. And with that one in specifically, they have interceptions. He did
Right.
not.
Yeah. Marshall didn't have the big plays. Like he was consistent.
Yeah, and his numbers are better than theirs as far as snaps and coverage. And even if you include the pass interferences people freak out about, he had 6 pass interferences this season. You add those, that's 90 yards. He still had his numbers were still better than all 3 of those guys. In yards per snap, yards per coverage snap, snaps per target, all that's reception per target, receptions per snap, all those numbers, he was still better than those guys. But it comes down to interceptions, and it comes down to team performances because that's what you're going to look at. Well, yeah, he was really good, but was he really good on the team that won?
Yeah.
No.
No, they were no bueno. That's not good. That's not a good look for USC. That's another indictment on this coaching staff that you couldn't get anybody on either of those first or second. I mean, that's bad.
We have a question from Chris, who says, do you think a guy like Kingsbury will come in and see how USC practices and let Helton know that it's not okay?
He's another voice in the room. You want another voice in the room. You want a head coaching voice in the room. And Clay Helton hasn't had that. The only voice in the room was basically his dad, and who was the head coach at Houston for a long time. But I think now you at least have that voice in the room. I think he's going to have a direct impact on practices because his system is different on offense, and you're going to have to change the way you practice as far as intensity and, if you want to go extra pads and things like that. I think that's more of a Clay Helton decision, but you will have someone like a Kliff Kingsbury, if he feels that needs to happen, can express that opinion. But I think he's going to have the ability to run the offense the way he wants to, including practices. But at least having someone else telling Clay Helton, hey, we should probably do this, I think will help.
I talked with some people around the Texas A&M program. Now, Kliff Kingsbury was only there for basically a year and a little bit over a year. And, they said that the issues with those teams, the Kliff Kingsbury teams, and maybe it was just revisionist history, is those teams were soft. So it's not like no one says the air raid, like, that's a really physical air raid team.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to come in now he may change the tempo of practices and stuff, and maybe that is better for the team. There could definitely be changes in practice, but I don't think you're going to be like, Yeah, he's going to run the Oklahoma. He wants to tell Clay hey, we should run the
Right.
Oklahoma drill a bunch.
That's not going to happen. I think the tempo is going to increase. I think you're going to see a more efficient practice. It's a much more efficient offense, and I think you run your practices much more efficiently. But yeah, if you think they're going to run a lot of goal line stuff and go full pads 3 days, I haven't heard that about something that Kliff Kingsbury would do.
But how much pull do you think he has over Clay Helton? We've seen a lot of stubbornness from Clay, admitting that maybe we should change things. Maybe the things we were doing were not right. Do you think he can have that influence?
I think for specific things you want to do for the offense, I think he's going to have that influence of like, hey, we're doing this or whatever, and not, well, this is what we normally do in this period. Like, I don't think there's going to be stuff like that. If it's overall philosophy things, then I think that Clay Helton would be a little bit more reluctant to make those changes. But at least you have a voice in there that's like, well, this is how we did it here.
Yeah.
And this is what we found. Kliff Kingsbury's been a head coach a lot longer than Clay Helton has, even though he's not been a head coach that long. But he's still got more experience as being a head coach. Yeah.
We have a question from Matthew James, which summarizes what a lot of people have been asking about. Will there be a quarterback competition now that Kliff is coming in?
This will answer JT Trujillo's questions as well. He's been asking several Jack Sears versus JT Daniels questions. Yes, there's inherently, anytime you have a new coach, even the incumbent has to impress the new coach.
Yeah.
So there is automatically, at least in all theory, there is a competition unless someone's hurt. So there's going to be 3 guys, and those 3 guys have to be excited. Hey, not only the 2 backups especially, like not only do now I have a chance to impress a new coach and maybe I can work my way ahead of JT Daniels, but also, man, look at all these quarterbacks he's put in the league, the guys he's worked with. Look at how well their future has been. Those 3 guys got to be super excited. Like, this is going to be fun. We're going to throw to open receivers all the time instead of having to throw to specific spots where guys, have to make tough catches maybe. So I think that those 3 guys got to be excited. And this is because this question came up in our podcast. Will he transfer Jack Sears? No, I don't think he's transferring, because you're not going to sit out a year and then have to go learn something else. Why not play here? And then if you finish up all your schoolwork, if you really wanted to leave the next year, then you're eligible already. Yeah. So why not stay and learn under Kliff Kingsbury and see what he has to offer? So no, Jack Sears is not going to transfer. He's going to be here. And yes, it will be an open competition, because anytime there's a new coach, it's an open competition.
Yeah. I mean, Clay Helton's already talked about he's excited to see what JT Daniels can do without a competition. I think he would have to back off of that. Now, is Clay Helton going to be in Kliff Kingsbury's ear and say he's going to, we want him to start? I don't know. I mean, there could be some influence there, but I would guess you bring in a guy like Kliff Kingsbury, you're going to pay him $2 million or whatever the heck they're going to pay him a year. We don't know yet. You're going to let him do what he wants to do. So if he really hey, we're going to be successful with Jack Sears, that might it might cause some pause for Clay Helton, but I think at the end you would have to give him what he wants.
Yeah, I think the underrated thing about Kliff coming is that it raises the competition level for everyone. Everyone wants to impress the new guy. Yeah. Everyone wants to have the best first impression. So if anything, everyone's competition level is going to raise just because you have a guy like that coming in.
Yeah,
so,
I think you're 100% right.
Michael has an interesting question. He says, will Tunnel Vision ever take phone calls live with USC fans?
I just threw Keely a little adapter over there. So basically what we'd have to do, we're already this is bare bones. There's 3 of us. We're all doing stuff. We're not just hosting the show, but
I'm looking at 4 screens right now.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of things, starting the show. There's a lot of technical aspects that have to go into creating this. How the sausage is made, you probably don't care. But to do that, we definitely would need another person here, which we've had some interns we can potentially do. But it's certainly a level of complexity, but it would essentially be our voice, a Google voice line that we use for the podcast. You could call it during the show. We would have someone maybe in the other room and patch those calls in as they come in. So, that's something we are going to try to do in the off season. We still got to do a backdrop and all that. But right now, it's not ideal that Keely's running the show and hosting, and both of us are doing stuff on the computers as we're hosting and talking. So we're all kind of doing multiple jobs. And normally, if you're talking about a live broadcast, you would have all kinds of people behind the scenes doing stuff. Everything you see is what you got. So love to do it, but we're going to need to get some more help and some regular help.
For clarity, I'm just here to look pretty.
Yeah, that's your job. On the topic of off-topic questions, Andrew says, when do y'all get to take some time off? Never.
In general, like May is usually slower.
I think he meant like this year, right?
Yeah, like May.
That's 2019.
No,
Christmas?
for this year, no.
Maybe?
Signing period, like this is all. No, this is
Well,
all
yeah,
crazy.
because USC's not in a bowl game after signing the early signing period, there is a brief there's a holiday
window?
there.
Yeah.
Which some of us are actually going to get to travel this year, which is weird. But yeah, so we'll get a little tiny downtime there. But I always tell people, for me, because I cover college baseball too, I have 2 quote unquote down months, January and July, and January especially, like that's leading up to signing day. There's basketball still going on, so it's not really a down period. It's
January's busy. Like
yeah,
January's
January is
busy.
very busy.
just trip to Hawaii for the Polynesian Bowl.
Oh
so,
my goodness.
but that's a down month for me.
Moving on. So the answer is it depends.
Don't worry about us, guys. We'll be
Don't
good.
worry about us. We have a question from Michael who says, "How secure is Clancy's job right now?"
Excuse me. Sorry, that was no. I just. There's definitely been rumors that that's going to be a change. I think when we talked about this from the very beginning, when Lin Swan came out and said, "Change the culture, change the scheme, change the discipline, change the staff, change the personnel," the moves that they've made already aren't enough. You could see them making some sort of move. He might move back, like Shotgun said, he was a coach in the NFL. He might go back to something like that. But we've seen him out on the recruiting trail. I mean, he's definitely getting more involved than he normally is. He's normally not, the most dynamic recruiter in the world. So we'll see. I mean, there might be something ongoing behind the scenes. Maybe that's something that happens afterwards. But there were some erroneous reports out there that he was being fired, and we were told that was not the case. But it wasn't like we were told it wasn't being thought of, so it still could happen. But at this point, we're not sure.
As of right now, he's still a defense coordinator. I think if you watch the other hires potentially on that side of the ball, if there's a defensive line coach and it looks like it's a Clancy Pendergast guy, then that tells you a lot about
Probably
him.
he's coming back.
Yeah. Whereas if it's someone who maybe doesn't mesh, personality-wise with him, be like, well, maybe it seems like something else is going on here. So watch those. But as of right now, he's still the defense coordinator.
Yeah, but the fact that those two guys, you have defensive line coach and defensive back coach, they haven't been hired, then I'll tell you a little bit that at least your guess is they're exploring some options there.
Look how long it took him to do offense coordinator.
But that's a big deal. Like it's not.
It still took him that long to do it.
DB coach, they just promote some GA and then move on.
Oh my goodness. Andrew Ball says, "When or how soon will Kliff start working with players?"
You can't right now, right? I believe.
Well, yeah, there's not like you can't he's got to come in and there's a lot of other things he's going to do before he starts working with players. But this is more of recruiting time now.
Yeah.
So there's no practice. There's no anything. I don't even know if they're having like team meetings or every once in a while. Like
It's finals. And
I don't think they're allowed to have team meetings.
yeah,
right
I don't
now.
think you can. So
Like he when he moves into his office, which we don't even know if that's happened yet, but when he does that, then maybe players will start stopping by.
Yeah.
If I'm JT Daniels or Jack Sears or both of them, I'd be like stopping by. Hey, coach. Hey, I'm here. Get that playbook.
Jack Sears is like, "Hey, JT, let's go get a pizza, and I'll meet you over there." Then he runs into the office. While he's like,
Conspiracy theories. Greg says, "Any word on where T. Martin is going? I'm worried he ends up at UCLA."
I haven't had any word of that. I think he's going to get paid pretty well. I don't think he's going to jump into anything anytime soon. He's at least got another year and potentially 2 on that contract. He loves being here in Los Angeles. But if UCLA came calling, I don't think he would. My guess is he wouldn't say no, but I don't think he's in like a hurry right now. My guess.
Kenny says something that I think Ryan might rant on. I'm not sure.
Yes, Kenny.
He says, "Is it time for SC to look into going independent, but play a Pac-12 heavy schedule like Notre Dame does with the ACC?"
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yes, USC should look at going independent. Like the Pac-12 is such a dumpster fire right now.
And they're not even winning it consistently. So why don't you try winning the Pac-12 consistently first?
It doesn't matter about that. You just
But
go
you
out.
could argue that their schedule in the Pac-12 was making them lose more games.
Yeah,
I mean, you should explore everything, but they're not going to explore anything.
right. You need to
They got to
explore.
step out of their way to do stuff. No, we ain't doing that.
So
bro.
I think you're talking about it would have to be a president that would come in that would feel that way, because the presidents have all just kind of backed Larry Scott, and you're seeing some resistance. But for USC and even UCLA, like you could as a duo explore go, hey, we want an 8-game schedule. That part of the reason they do a 9-game schedule is so the Oregon States and Washington States of the world will get more trips to Los Angeles. Well, that's at USC and UCLA's expense. They split the money. All that stuff is dumb. So they need to get rid of all that stuff. USC and UCLA could look at like the Big 12 and get some huge payday out of that. USC could look at going independent. Or would they be as popular as Notre Dame? No, but like what if you got a TV deal with NBC? So instead of just showing Notre Dame games, they show both. And you could get like an ACC sort of schedule with the Pac-12. Well, would the Pac-12 teams not want to schedule USC? No, they want to schedule USC. That's why they want to come to Los Angeles so they can recruit. So it's not like they would shun you from doing that. So I think, would it happen? Very, very unlikely. But you just have to have the confidence and feel like, to have the confidence that I'm going to go out and hire Kliff Kingsbury to be the offensive coordinator. We haven't seen that kind of confidence from USC at all. Have the confidence to go, you know what, Larry, this isn't working. We're not getting paid as much as Oregon State and Washington State. Why is Rutgers getting $20 million a year more than we are in TV deals? We are the draw. We are one of the big draws. We're going to get paid more. Our schedule's not going to have any Friday games. We're going to tell you what's going on. And if not, we're going to go independent. And I think you would make them acquiesce and get what you want without doing it. But you have to have, it's like you got that chutzpah, whatever. What is it? Like chutzpah to go out and say, hey, this is what we want. This is what we want to do. And they could partner with UCLA and look at like, hey, this other conference would take us in. So I really feel USC needs to do that. And I think by doing that, you could make the entire Pac-12 better. It's not making the Pac-12 better, just make all this parity and stuff. It's terrible. So you could it's not like you're going to screw over Oregon State or Washington State. You do this, you force some changes because Larry Scott's tone deaf to all this stuff. He doesn't care. You force them to make the conference better. It's not just going to be better for USC, but it'll be better for everybody, in my opinion.
So since you're in a ranting mood, I need you to put this to rest because only you can do it.
Okay.
We have a guy named Sean, and he is loyal. He has been on
Hey,
our Facebook feed a while, but he does think that since we are owned by 247, thus CBS, he thinks we have SEC bias, which I don't know where that comes from.
We have SEC bias?
Yes.
Like what? I mean,
I don't know why.
We don't even get to watch the SEC games.
Yeah,
usually.
dude, I watch all the Pac-12. Like I do a Pac-12 podcast. Like I don't know. So the way it works is, I'm an independent contractor for 24/7 Sports. Like we're not employees for them, and these guys are contractors with me. So we're just contractors. I am contracted to be the USC content provider for 24/7 Sports, which is owned by CBSI. They don't tell me what to do. Like they don't say, put this content up or whatever. Like they're not allowed to because I'm a contractor. If I was an employee, they could say, write this, write that. We're not. We are contractors. And so we put up the content we want. I mean, I don't think we ever even mentioned SEC schools. I don't know what you want to talk about, but like.
He might be trolling. Whatever. Sean, there you have it. No
All
more
right,
of
Sean.
that.
Going back to Larry Scott, he did say in his Pac-12 press conference that balance is very, very good, Ryan.
Yeah, balance is good.
Balance has an
Balance is
offensive
very,
scheme.
very
and
good.
Balance in the Pac-12. No, I'm out. We have a question on YouTube from Justin who says, so do you all think Clay Helton could improve as head coach these next few years if he's surrounded by other great coaches that maybe indirectly push him to be better?
Yeah, definitely.
I think, people are like, oh, you're going to bring in Kliff Kingsbury and Clay's going to get fired. If you bring in Kliff Kingsbury and the team gets a lot better, they're probably not going to fire Clay Helton. I think you have better people around him. I think he's going to do a better job. And I think that's part of the problem is he's been inexperienced because he hasn't done the job before, but he didn't have experienced people around him. Well, Kliff Kingsbury is. And if you get some more people that are experienced, the team's only going to get better. I still feel the team is super talented, the most talented team in the Pac-12. Some people disagree, but I think you have the talent and then you would have the coaching. You're probably going to see some really good results. And this was a year, if you just had decent coaching, you win the Pac-12 South. Utah won it without their quarterback, without their running back, with a 6-3 Pac-12 record. So this was a year was for the taking, and USC went 5-7. So I think you improve the coaching, things are going to get a lot better, and Clay Helton will look like a better coach.
There's room for growth, obviously. So what's to say that Clay Helton can't get better? There's not. He's a young head coach as far as his experience. So if you get other people in around him to surround him and he can learn from them as well, they'll learn from him. Hey, everyone gets better. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. The offenses he saw were under Kiffin and Sark. He's now going to be seeing an offense from Kliff Kingsbury. I think that's going to influence him down the road. You're like, holy crap, we've been doing this and we're throwing into tight windows or super covered guys all the time. And he does this, and guys are, two of the 4 or 5 guys we got out there are wide open. So I think that would be an influence on him. So even if a Kingsbury stays for 1 year and he goes off somewhere else to get a better job, you've probably opened Clay Helton's eyes to something new and more exciting, and something he would probably want to keep going.
We have an interesting question from Alan, who says, which backup/bench players have the potential to break out / become starters under Kliff's system?
Become starters. I mean,
Do you think Velus gets a little more love?
Velus was the guy that stands out to me because he can take the top off the defense, and I think you can use him more in that regard. I mean,
I could see a Trayvon Sidney.
Yeah, that was going to be my next one.
Yeah,
because you're going to use more 4 wide receiver sets. They use in his offense. There's a lot of 2x2 sets with 2 receivers on each side, or 3x1 sets. If they have 3 wide receivers, it's usually with 2 running backs instead of a tight end. Whereas USC's previous offense was 3x1x1, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, like 80% of the time. Now you're going to be, when you go 3 receivers, it's usually going to be with 2 backs. That's more that they use. So you're going to a lot of times have that 4th receiver, though. Sometimes you'll have 5 receivers, but I think Trayvon Sidney is a guy that definitely, because they're going to more than likely play 2 slots. So you're going to have Amon-Ra, you're going to have Velus, but you're going to rotate guys in, especially if you're going tempo. Another guy like Josh Amorbebe could jump in there on the outside if you're rotating more guys in and stuff. I think there was receivers, especially, there's going to just be more opportunities for guys.
I think like a Stephen Carr, if he's healthy, that could be really special to watch what he can do running and catching balls. And I think like a Josh Follow, he just seems like to be perfect for that kind of H-back sort of thing. So I feel like they're going to use him quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Jay Alonso. He says, any news on a strength and conditioning coach nutritionist being replaced? It's interesting. I don't know if you felt this, Ryan, but I feel like there's a lot of fan intrigue about this specific area where we didn't really start that. It was kind of a fan thing where they're over that particular
I think
area.
they've been over the strength and conditioning coach for a couple years now.
But this is like insistent in every question.
It's getting a lot. And I had VF Castro, so she had covered the Big 12 for a while and covered Kliff Kingsbury, and I happened to know the strength and conditioning coach, I forget his name, Coach Witt, I forget his first name, but from Texas Tech, and he was like, he after 9/11 joined like the Army and was a Ranger and came back and was a head strength coach, and it's just kind of this, it's a really good story. And like people on the podcast, that's what everyone was saying. Like, oh my God, we need to get this guy and blah, blah, blah. And
we already had a comment about that.
And he wasn't retained by Texas Tech. So like he's on the market there. I mean, are they going to let like Kliff Kingsbury bring in his own strength staff and stuff too? I have no idea. But we say this a lot. Like, I don't know. I'm no strength and conditioning expert. I just feel like if you're going to change the culture, that is the position where you're with the players the most. It would make sense for them to make some kind of change. But I haven't heard that that's imminent. I haven't heard, what's going on there. That could be something that happens later. I don't think that's the highest priority right now. It's more about the position coaches. But you might see something if you see something like that, I'm assuming it's going to be off-season-y, like after like the signing day and that kind of stuff. But, I don't know.
That's not a coaching decision that's going to move the needle recruiting, so it's not something you have to go out and force right now and have to get it. Whereas you can wait and see what happens with other staffs, as they play out some other, who gets fired, those type of things. And if you like someone else, somewhere else, then maybe you look at it. I talked about it earlier on the Family Feud podcast, which you guys should check out tomorrow morning when it's up. But if you go 5-7, everyone can be fired. And if you talk about, hey, we got to change the culture, which is talking about the physicality of things, and you keep the head coach, well, the other point on that pyramid, there's 2 tops on that when you're talking about culture, and it's the strength and conditioning coach and the head coach. So the head coach is over the whole program. The strength and conditioning coach is basically over the program for 6 months of the year by himself.
Yeah.
He's the one that has the most contact with all the players. So if you say that you got to change the culture, we got to fix this, and you keep the head coach, that tells me you probably need to be looking at the other side. But we haven't seen them go out and make a bunch of changes so far on things that they've talked about changing. So until they do.
Right. That's that kind of the point earlier is like this was a big domino to fall, but I don't think it's enough. It's not enough to do what you'd want to do. It'll improve things. They'll probably win a bunch more games just from that. But if you really are serious about making some sort of run and trying to make the playoffs and stuff, you have to make more changes. It's just, and that would that would be an obvious one.
Yeah, I agree. John says, do you guys feel like this is a lose-lose for Clay Helton? If successful, Kingsbury will get the credit, fail, and Helton gets the blame.
I mean, he's already playing with house money. He should have been fired. Like that's, if you like any fan base, any whatever, like normal circumstances, the last time all these things happened, the coach was fired. He was not. So I think you're sort of like, it's one of those things like you have a brush with death and you just live every day like it's your last. Like he says, like drive it like you stole it.
Yeah.
I think you really can now drive it like you stole it. Like
Yeah.
screw it. Like everything else. Yeah, I'm going to go hire people that could take my job. I'm going to go hire people that I'm not familiar with that are just really good at what they do instead of just doing the way we've done things. And kind of, it's almost like you're coaching, it was like coaching to keep your job as opposed to coaching to win. You know what I mean? Like it was just more about, well, I'm kind of worried about this. Or it's like, now it's like, screw it. No, go get Kliff Kingsbury. If you need to go get a big defensive coordinator, do it. Or if you need to replace your strength, just do those things. Because now there's like you're living on borrowed time, I guess.
I would agree.
I mean, yeah, is that right? Did I say that? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's like, did I say that wrong? I don't know.
I just lost my question. Did we have any Periscope questions? I want to make sure we give them some love. YouTube as well.
So we have one from T Gang. Does Mace Funa flip to USC? So he did take an official visit. So he's a local running linebacker that's committed to Oregon. I'm curious to see how these last couple weeks go. Will they get some of these guys to, if they make some big changes and get people excited, can you get some of these guys to flip? He's a big one. He's was it Mater Dei?
Did not play this year because he tore his ACL. He's a big rugby player and actually injured himself playing rugby. He's actually like one of the best rugby players, maybe even in America.
But he took it official this past weekend.
For his age.
Yeah. Okay. So committed to Oregon. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think it's going to be a great class, but I think this will help probably be a top 10 kind of class, but I don't think it'll be like a top 5 kind of class.
Anthony says, was Michael Pittman a surprise return?
Well, he hasn't decided
He hasn't
yet.
officially coming back for his.
Oh, okay, sorry.
He hasn't officially said that. He did essentially give he told us that he's coming back. He said that he was surprised, that everyone was surprised that he was returning. So I think in his mind, he wanted to return.
If he was going to go for the NFL draft, he would have already made a statement by now, I would assume. Because if you look at players that are skipping bowl games, I mean, there's a list of probably 15 guys that are already skipping bowl games and are entering the NFL draft. You know, guys like Greedy Williams and Rashawn Gary and a couple players from North Carolina State and different things. But those guys have already made that decision. Now, guys that are on the fringe, usually it's after their bowl game and you like take a week away from the game because you've been focused on the game. But USC's had a week away and we haven't heard anything. I think it would have already been announced by now. Because you want to get it as much advanced start as you can on that training for the combine, different things like that. So as of right now, since he hasn't said anything, I don't think it will happen.
I don't know when the NFL evaluations come, and I don't think he's going to get some like first round evaluation. So it would have to be something crazy like that. Otis Page wanted to know where is it? Crap, I missed it.
It happens. It just people comment and then it's gone, and then you're just like,
Oh, can you explain how Colorado got the Georgia defensive coordinator and SC can't get those guys? So Colorado hired their head coach. That's a big difference. You're taking a defensive coordinator who Nick Saban hired like 3 or 4 times. So obviously he's good at what he does, and you're making him your head coach. That's a move up. So that's like if USC was going to USC could have got him if they wanted to hire him as a head coach. Obviously, if you go to Colorado, you'd go to USC. Could you get that guy to move from Georgia to become USC's defensive coordinator? That would be a more apples to apples comparison. It's not like Colorado took some defensive coordinator and made him a linebacker coach. They made him the head coach. That's a whole different story.
I was reading comments.
No, that's okay.
How about Troy Polamalu for DB's coach?
Okay. Do you want me to go on a rant again?
That's why I was laughing, because I could see it in your eyes. We got a question for the podcast. They want Reggie Bush as a running back coach.
Yes, Reggie Bush. Oh, like Chris Richard coming to be the defensive coordinator and stuff. Who
He actually has proven himself.
Bit.
That's a bad class to make a jump.
Well,
Reggie Bush and Troy Polamalu, no. They have no coaching experience with these positions. So, they were good at those things. Chris Richard has actually gone. He was a defense coordinator in the NFL.
For a little while, yeah.
If you make that distinction, then, he has proven himself as a coach. These other two guys is like, hey, they were good as players. They're going to be good as coaches, right?
Right. So here's the thing.
No, not necessarily.
Look, just ask yourself this. It's not just about okay, for Chris Richard even, or like Jack Del Rio when people wanted him to hire at USC. Colorado didn't interview Jack Del Rio. They weren't interested in him. So look at your peers. Would they hire the guy that you want them to hire? If not, why? Well, is it the only reason you want to hire him is because he played football at USC? That can't be the main reason you want to hire someone. The main reason you'd hire Troy Polamalu is because he played football at USC. The main reason you'd hire even a Chris Richard, who has a better resume, is because he played football at USC. The main reason you'd hire Jack Del Rio, who was a head coach in the NFL, but other college coaches wouldn't hire him. Other colleges wouldn't hire him because he played football at USC. Who was the main reason you'd hire Reggie Bush? Maybe to like a little FU to the NCAA, but also because he played football at USC. That can't be the main reason you hire someone. It's because he played football at USC. Stop doing that. Stop thinking about people that played football at USC and hire them. Hire people that are good at their jobs, and that's what you're doing. Kliff Kingsbury didn't play football at USC, but he's really freaking good at his job. Do more of that and less Troy Polamalu's and Reggie Bush's.
Richard's good at his job, too. Carson for QB coach.
I feel like we
Again, Carson's brother, maybe, because he's been a quarterback coach.
I said that and y'all shot me down.
I don't think he would take it. He's making too much money as a
much bank.
QB guru, I think.
I mean, it's different, too, coaching 7-on-7 stuff and being but I would rather you get someone, even like Chris Richard, he's been a defensive coordinator in the NFL for a while. I think he's moving up in the NFL ranks. College and the NFL are different. I'd much rather see someone that has a lot of college experience and stopping college offenses than NFL.
I think NFL is getting even more difficult, whereas it used to be the other way around.
Yeah, but I'd rather you just hire college experienced people and not because he played football at USC.
I think another off-season edition we should have is like a little Ryan rant cam, and I can just like click on it and it's just like rant. So
yeah, just come up with whatever rants you want.
yeah, we're reaching the top of the hour, so if you want to get rapid fire questions in, get those
I got
in
some rapid fire
now. Go for it, Shotty.
Steve asks, any chance we poach any Texas Tech recruits? Maybe Maverick McIver, the quarterback, is a guy that maybe Kingsbury already likes. Besides that, a lot of 3-star guys that are from out of state. It's not a lot of cross-pollination there.
No.
So probably
Chris
not.
Trevino did a story, too, on that. There's like
Check
5
it out,
guys he mentioned.
USCfootball.com.
Yeah.
Any chance we bring in the strength and conditioning coach from Texas Tech?
We already talked about that.
You talked about it a little bit, but you didn't really say where they might bring him in. Could. I mean, Kingsbury, if you have autonomy of the offense, you might also have his ear pretty good. Like, hey, coach, I know this other guy too.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
I think if they made that decision that they're going to make that change, like the culture change, then it would open up an option because Texas Tech didn't retain that staff.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing. These positions aren't open. You guys are asking about stuff that's not open. If the O-line can't pass block, Kliff Kingsbury's offense won't work. What are the chances Tim Drevno gets fired? The team pass blocked fine. It's their run block that was the issue this year, not the pass blocking.
Yeah.
Pass blocking, especially after the first 3 games, pass blocking was, if not great, was really good.
yeah. We had one from Southland Trojan. Do you think Kliff will bring his own playbook? Yogi Roth thinks Hilton will still have control. I mean, Yogi's real smart about this stuff. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think this is Kliff Kingsbury coming in and running his stuff. Like you don't hire him to run Clay Helton's playbook. Like that, there's just no. He mentioned. I think I heard him talk about this mentioning. Something like that. But like no, like if you're gonna go hire like you want a food analogy? You want to go hire a Michelin, starred French chef to come to your restaurant, and you're like, I want you to cook hot dogs and burgers. Like, no, why would you want to do that? You hire the chef who's really good at what he or she cooks, and you let them cook that. So you don't bring in Kliff Kingsbury to run the gumbo. You bring him to run his air raid. So that's what he'll be doing.
Jasper Smith, our buddy who Shotgun likes to give an accent to, had an interesting question.
He said,
I keep mentioning it. He says, which season was more disappointing, 2018 or 2012, when USC was ranked number 1 in preseason, Barkley, Woods, and Lee on the cover of SI and ended up finishing 7-6?
I think 2012. That was awful.
and you had to go to the Sun Bowl. At least this team did have to go to the Sun Bowl.
Even in 2017, like the fans didn't feel that good about winning the Pac-12. Like you still got smoked by Notre Dame. You still got. I mean, they felt this coming. Like they knew they were complaining about winning the Rose Bowl and winning the Pac-12 because they knew this was a team that was just not that good. And this year kind of proved that. So much less unexpected than in 2012.
Yeah. Any other rapid fire, Mr. Shotgun?
Yes. If USC had made the Pac-12 title game but had lost by a couple touchdowns to UW, would Helton still have fired T. Martin? That's kind of a weird argument to make because they would have to have like 3 other wins during the season to get to the Pac-12 title game. So then you probably the offense wouldn't have been such a concern. So I don't think so.
Good rapid fire shotgun.
Tried. How many W's do you guys predict? Which games?
We don't even know the whole staff yet, so I'm gonna wait.
A little bit ahead of
Good
ourselves.
answer.
Yeah.
It's a good answer.
Why are we complaining about the schedule, George says? If we dominate like we should, it should not be a problem. Do we see Notre Dame complaining? Their schedule's not any better, and they went undefeated. It's all about the coaching.
Yeah, their schedule's not.
Notre Dame to engineer their schedule anyway?
And it's easier. That's why we're complaining about the schedule.
Easier. Yeah, they don't. They're not playing like as many. They're not. Yes, no. It's a very different thing. Now they scheduled Florida State. They scheduled USC. Those teams just happen to suck this year. But their schedule was not as difficult this year.
And you also are correct. If you dominate, it doesn't matter.
True.
Do you think Kingsbury expects to be head coach sometime in the near future?
I think he wants to be a head coach. I don't know. Like I said, it might be tough for him to be the head coach at USC because if he does his job really well, then Clay Helton wins and probably doesn't and probably retained. If he doesn't do his job well, why would you make him the head coach?
What do you guys think about people thinking Urban Meyer will come back and coach USC, Greg says? I think it's an effing terrible idea because he has done nothing but, he wins. He does win. Well, you get 1 year of winning, maybe 2 years of winning, and then you get basically the NCAA sitting on top of your program and nothing but scandal and stuff. So if you want that, what do you really weigh?
The NCAA is not on him. It's like, it's other things that are on him. So
The NCAA has been on him too. They had sanctions this past year, I believe. They had, or not sanctions, but like probation and stuff.
Well, he got suspended or whatever, but no, he would win. So if something happens, no, would USC go out and do that? No.
And if they do, I will trash the hire every single time I possibly can.
And I would say
I would too.
I would say that's pretty.
I'm very
awesome.
anti-Urban Meyer.
Just going out and getting someone like that is a big
You would
deal.
say it's awesome?
Yeah, that's a.
I mean, how many legal problems did he have at Florida? Is that okay? Is that fine? I mean, Helton's had similar, and you don't go, well, that's fine.
I love pushing their buttons.
Oh my goodness.
Look, I don't think USC would hire Urban Meyer. I don't, but he's a proven winner. How many coaches have won a national championship out there?
But
Not many.
When is winning more important than other things?
To the fans, that's all that matters, and that's why people are.
USC's done the other things part. They need to do the winning part. So you want to try to do some winning?
You can win without. I mean, Dabo Swinney hasn't had anybody murder people.
I thought we
Nick
had.
Saban hasn't
hold up,
had any.
Hold up. I thought we had a rule that we don't talk about head coaching positions when there's not an opening.
True.
I'm shutting this whole thing down.
Shut it down.
Shutting it down.
Fine.
Jasper wants to know, what are we doing with tunnel vision going forward? What does our schedule look like? Ryan.
For right now, I
you.
think we're going to do this. I mean, obviously the Christmas stuff, like there's going to be some travel, but we might move things around a little bit, but probably evenings are better. We get more people watching on the evenings. So I think we'll continue to do that. I'd like to keep doing 2 days a week, even during the off season. We get a lot of questions, so it's fine. I think we can handle. There won't be as much newsy stuff, but we can do more questions. And like you said, if we can do some live calls, that would be great. So we want to keep making it better. Like I said, we'll do the backdrop. Now that we started this basically when the season started, this setup and everything. So it was like there wasn't a whole lot of time to tweak it. It was just like coming up with the logos, the theme song, like all that stuff was happening like as the season goes on, which is really busy. I think the off season we'll have some time to kind of improve things. Any suggestions you guys have, we certainly will listen to them and try to make it better. So by next football season, it's more of a well-oiled machine, finely tuned broadcast. But that's the plan.
Yep.
Ricard says, wow, Shotgun, what a stupid excuse not to like Urban Meyer because some of his players killed people. Wow.
Right.
That's
not all of them.
Hey, you guys are saying winning was everything. And as I just put it in the YouTube chat, winning was everything at Penn State too.
It was.
Whew. We're ending on a.
I got a couple more.
Shotgun, let's go.
Of quick rapid fire. Eric asked this a couple times. Just Kliff Kingsbury's offense used tight ends. Talked about that a little bit earlier in the show, but not really. But he will adapt the offense based on his team's strengths.
Yeah.
And you've seen that with, what'd you say, a 1,400-yard rusher and also a tight end with over 100 receptions.
Yeah, it was like 106 receptions or something.
Which is a crazy amount of receptions.
Right, yeah.
Jesse said if Clay lets KK do his thing, winning the South is a given. what do you think the ceiling would be for next year's team?
No, I think you're right. Winning the South would almost be a given.
What's the ceiling for next year's team?
It depends what changes. This is not enough changes to make a higher ceiling, like a super high ceiling. You can switch it around and win 3 or 4 more games easy. Like it can be a 9-win team just by doing this. But if you want to be for real, you got to make more changes.
And last one I have is from Donald Donaldson, a good comment, not a question, but the Pac-12 should change their name to the Pac-12 Television Media Corporation instead of the Pac-12 Conference.
I like it.
Sure, maybe.
But it has to be seen in more homes than what it is. I mean, is it really a media thing when you can't, my podcast, we say we're in more homes than the Pac-12 network because you can get it in every home in the country because it's on the internet.
It's true.
Which is true. But the Pac-12
true.
doesn't like that. We say that. That's our slogan. They don't really like
They
it.
didn't let you come to Pac-12 Media Day because of it.
They didn't give me a booth at the Pac-12.
Oh, right.
I could come.
Oh, that's true.
But I wanted
bad.
my own booth. So like some small radio station in backwoods Oregon gets their own booth, but the Podcast of Champions doesn't. It's like, come on, man.
Snark doesn't get open doors for you.
Snarky.
All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out. So this is a busy time. Go to uscfootball.com. If you haven't signed up, there's a free trial, $10 a month. It's definitely worth it. You love USC. You get lots of good information in there.
Tomorrow, there's the War Room every Friday. That's where you get your information.
Get the inside info on what's going on. A lot of these questions will get a little more detail of some of the stuff that you were asking.
Yep.
So make sure you check that out. If you care enough to watch this, especially after an hour, you should be a subscriber to uscfootball.com. Go check it out. Email me, Ryan@uscfootball.com, and I can hook you up a little bit. So just check it out. You'll like it. Trust me.
Also, listen to the Family Feud podcast, which will be coming out later. And
again, 5 plugs for your podcast.
Got to.
Plug.
If we're gonna,
You're
if we're
outnumbered,
gonna,
Ryan.
if we're gonna tape it beforehand, we're gonna plug our show.
Yep.
And again, thanks you guys for joining us. I mean, we have almost 300 people on YouTube right now. Really appreciate all the questions and the comments. More so the questions because you guys get off track a little bit. YouTube, we got to rein you in a little bit.
YouTube's the
no,
peanut
thank you guys so
gallery.
much for
We
joining
love
us,
them.
and we'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be back on Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday, yeah.
Sunday.
So but get your questions in. Maybe we'll try to do a couple live calls on Sunday. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh no! Here we
Everybody,
go.
buckle up, everybody. We'll see how Sunday
That would
goes.
be a reason to do a whole new show. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
One last one. One Blue Love. I love your comment. That Kliff Kingsbury needs to give JT some facial hair tips.
Nice.
Maybe.
A little grooming.
Alrighty. That's gonna wrap it up. That
Quarterback
shotgun.
grooming. Truly.
That shotgun. That's right. I'm Keely. We'll see you guys on